the kind of surrogate support that Donald Trump has wanted. Thank you, Jim. Out front now, James Galliano, former FBI special agent, Trump supporter Kayleigh McEnany, Clinton supporter Keith Boykin, who was a White House aide to President Bill Clinton, Trump's former campaign manager Corey Lewandowski, Clinton supporter Angela Rye, former executive director of the Congressional Black Caucus, and Patrick Healy, New York Times political correspondent. Okay, thanks to all. Let me start with you, Corey. Robbie Mook, the FBI sticking to protocol when it comes to Donald Trump, refusing to comment, but they say not so with Hillary Clinton coming out with this letter and dumping these documents via Twitter today related to the Mark Rich pardon.
Look, I think, I said this very clearly on July 5th when Director Comey came out and had a press conference and said we're going to clear Hillary. I thought it was wrong at the time. I didn't think he should have done that. I think he should have gathered the evidence and given it to a prosecutor to determine if they're going to move forward with that. He chose not to do that. We didn't hear any complaints. We didn't hear any chaos or chaos from, the Clinton side. They said he's a great, reputable individual, and what we saw Sunday was Tim Kaine said the exact same thing. What we're not talking about is the Trump, and to be clear, the package has it wrong. Paul Manafort was not the campaign manager. I want to be very clear about that. He was the campaign chairman, two separate roles. And all of a sudden today, we find that he's under FBI investigation. I find it very interesting that all of a sudden the Clintons aren't talking about that.
But to many, that would be a distinction without a difference. I'm just going to say, I understand for you it was personal, right? Because you were the chair. I get it. You were the manager.
And Robbie Mook. There's two very different roles. Paul was a position that he was not being paid for. It was an honorary position.
He's working for the campaign.
It's very different.
If he was doing something with the Russians inappropriate, that would still be...
Like John Podesta's emails. It's the difference between John Podesta and Robbie Mook, two very different things. So I think the package just needs to get it right.
I'm going to let others jump in here. I would say to me that is a distinction without a difference.
What is the point? I mean, John Podesta's emails have been the subject that Trump's people have been attacking him about for the past few weeks. So the idea you can't attack Paul Manafort because he's somehow not associated with the campaign. He's the chairman of the campaign.
He's not the chairman of the campaign, but moreover...
He was the chairman of the campaign.
But what I'm saying is what we don't hear today from the Clinton campaign is this outrage that all of a sudden, the FBI is investigating Paul Manafort. Well, is that actually taking place? And if so, where's the double standard there?
No, but the FBI leaked the story last night, apparently to the New York Times, that there was no evidence connecting the Russian ties to Donald Trump. Where did that come from? Why is the FBI even leaking this information? Of course there was a double standard here. I agree with you on one thing, Corey. Comey should never have had a press conference back in the summer. Right. But after that, he continues to be pressured and bullied by the Republican Party and the Republicans in Congress to release information that doesn't have to be released. It's time for him to shut up and just do his job.
But this is a Democrat administration. It's a Democrat Justice Department.
And a Republican FBI
overseen by, who was appointed by a Democrat.
He says he's no longer a Republican. He has donated to Romney and McCain, though, in the past, I will say. Patrick, when you look at this, though, the totality of it, do you see a double standard?
I think it's very clear that Comey has followed a different standard with the Clinton campaign, frankly, sort of all along. I mean, what we saw in the summer in terms of him going out publicly, giving the press conference that he did, and then sort of going before Congress, making different statements, it basically played into a really kind of, volatile, explosive situation. And usually you have FBI sort of stepping back, and I would certainly defer to others, but stepping back and making judicious statements and putting out information only at the end of a report when they're bringing charges, when they recommend them to the Justice Department. And in this case now, I think you're having basically a Clinton campaign that is sort of waiting to see what kind of drip, drip, drip comes. I mean, this is not what they want for the last 7 days, and they're really just hoping that there's going to be silence.
So, James, when you hear this criticism, what do you say? I mean, obviously, if he hadn't come out and exonerated her the way he did in July, he might not have had to come out now and say, I'm still looking at it, right? He wouldn't have had to say anything at all.
Sure. The FBI has been around for a long time. They've been the investigative arm for the federal government since 1908. I think that the FBI, from its inception, it was created to be an apolitical organization. Right. We follow the evidence. We go where the evidence takes us. This director in particular, I served under 4 of them, 2 that were appointed by Democratic presidents and 2 by Republican presidents. This director has a moral compass and has a level of transparency that in my quarter century in the FBI I have not seen before. I think he was dealt a difficult hand. I think the case was brought to him by Congress. He didn't go seeking it out. He didn't go looking for it. He followed the evidence, and when he made his decision, Aaron, I think it was a decision that, by his conscience, he felt was the right one to make.
And the Obama administration came out and said, I still have trust in Director Comey. I'm not going to defend or not defend his decision, but I have trust in him. I do believe he's independent. And for Hillary Clinton to try to blame this on Comey, we've seen her first blame this on Colin Powell, then her aides in the FBI notes. Now it's Jim Comey's fault. But as A.B. Stoddard wrote, Hillary Clinton owns this all. She owns every bit of this. But for her illegal server that jeopardized top secret information, we would not be having this conversation right now. We're having it because of the irresponsibility of your candidate. Bottom line, end of story.
She's not blaming anyone. I think what she's saying is that
There's a double. It's Comey's problem, not ours.
Yes, but saying that he made a mistake and there's a double standard is not the same thing as challenging his integrity. I don't think anyone's saying that James Comey is not a person of integrity, but I think there is clearly a double standard when you're willing to release information 11 days before an election about Hillary Clinton, but you're not willing to release information about Donald Trump a few weeks before the election.
Isn't that calling his integrity into question?
No, I think it's a double standard. I don't know what the motivations were, but he should have known that it would be perceived as a double standard. And the idea that he had to go down this route in the first place, as Corey mentioned, by releasing that press conference
So let me ask you, James, about this other issue, though, this Mark Rich thing. Okay, sure. You heard the FBI statement that Jim Sciutto just had, his reporting, that they say, well, it just automatically happened. There had been multiple requests under the Freedom of Information Act, so it was available, so it automatically dumped. The timing does seem strange. I mean, this was the most controversial pardon that Bill Clinton did. It's been dogged him ever since, and that just magically hit Twitter today?
I understand that. You have to understand how Freedom of Information Act cases are handled. There's a department for that at the FBI. It is a separate compartment, department that works. The FBI headquarters is compartmentalized. The folks that do that, they come in first serve, first, when they reach the Freedom of Information Act folks, they work it. Sometimes there's a ton of redactions that have to be made. You have to go through and make sure nothing's sensitive that should not be released. Sometimes there are reams and reams and reams of documents. It takes a ton of time.
So you do not see any sort of collusion, conspiracy, anything?
Because I do not believe that the folks that are working on that are releasing those as they come in and as they're completed.
Who tweeted it out?
Wait, no. Wait, I have to chime in here.
Go ahead, Angela.
This is from an account that was not used since October 2015 before Sunday. On Sunday, they released the IG report about Hillary Clinton's emails. On Sunday, they released surveillance requests about the Baltimore protests having to do with Freddie Gray. The only thing that they released on the Trump side was an investigation about Donald Trump and his father donating to city council members at the time. Hasn't been used since October, and it just so happens that the Friday after Director Comey makes sends this letter out to Republican chairmen on the House and Senate side, all of a sudden this account needs to be used again for FOIA reports.
Exactly.
No, it's not.
I'm raising
questions about reasonable doubt and concerns about the way in which this account is used. I know you can understand that, Kayleigh.
Questioning the integrity of the Federal Bureau investigation is not going to win you a single voter. Your candidate is under criminal investigation because of her fault.
The election is rigged is an okay thing to do. I mean, you guys are the king and queens of conspiracy theories. The idea that you would actually accuse anybody of creating a conspiracy theory as a problem doesn't make any sense.
I think this notion that the entire Federal Bureau of Investigation is on a witch hunt to go after Hillary Clinton is absolutely absurd. What we're doing is that we're now questioning the integrity of not just the director, but the people in the Freedom of Information Act division who release this information, and anybody who has ever worked there in a period of time when these requests are in. Absolutely. No, it's absolutely. They should not be questioned in any way, shape, or form. We have no proof whatsoever.
They should not be questioned in any way, shape, or form.
Absolutely not.
This is America. Every department of the government is subject to criticism and questioning, including the presidency, including the Federal Bureau of Investigation.
The entire Federal Bureau of Investigation should be called into question.
That's the whole point of our country, that nobody is above the law.
July until Friday, and now it's the Clinton campaign.
Just to step back, I mean, I think this is sort of playing right now to Mr. Trump and sort of his interest. I mean, the degree to which there are sort of the conspiracy theory element, the idea that, the government is doing, pulling this string, sort of pulling that string. It goes to a core concern that a lot of voters have in the states that he's going to, in Michigan and New Mexico and other states, that something is afoul. Something is afoot, that powers behind the scenes are sort of pulling strings. And I think the degree to which that they can sort of plant doubt, that the Trump campaign can sort of plant doubts, reinforce doubts, or even just let them sit is all to the good. And you're seeing Hillary Clinton now trying to do this pivot that Jeff Zeleny talked about. I mean, trying